Thanks for joining us and listening to another God-lived and God-breathed message by Darius Nelms. Our mission is to increase our generation standard back to God's standard of excellence and kingdom living through personal development, relational wisdom, business management, and faith increase. Our aim is that this message inspires and infuses you to reach your next level of living and helps you discover your rightful place in God's kingdom. Now, let's dive into the message.
Welcome to another episode of Think Tank Tuesday, where we meet every other Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time to explore the mind of God, the ideas of God, and the precepts of God. We're going to start with Matthew chapter 15, verse 24, NIV version. Very simple verse. He answered, I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel. This is Jesus talking. And so what we need to understand is that with God, we have limitations. Jesus, God in the flesh, is demonstrating to us that in our earth suit, we have bounds, we have limits, and we have a jurisdiction set by God himself. Mark chapter 10, verses 35 through 40, NIV version, it says, Then James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came to him. Teacher, they said, we want you to do whatever we ask. What do you want me to do for you? He asked. They replied, let one of us sit at your right hand and the other at your left in your glory. You don't know what you're asking, Jesus said. Can you drink the cup that I drink or be baptized with the baptism that I'm baptized with? We can, they answered. Jesus said to them, you will drink the cup I drink and be baptized with the baptism I'm baptized with. Verse 40, but to sit at my right or left is not for me to grant. These places belong to those for whom they have been prepared. And so let us be warned to know our limitations and our jurisdiction. James and John went outside of their jurisdiction. Jesus says that these places belong to those for whom they have been prepared. That place was not for them because they had limitations. They had a jurisdiction already set for their life. And so we have to be aware of our limitations and our jurisdiction. I'm not necessarily talking about skill set. I'm talking about how far you can actually go, because it's unwise to go beyond the place that God has called us to. Going beyond where God has called us to places us in danger, which is actually outside of the will of God for our lives. Oh, I know this is not a popular teaching, but hear me. Define your impact and your influence. How far does it reach? Does it reach locally? Does it reach the borders of states? Is your influence a national or global reach? Know your jurisdiction, because knowing it saves you from being disappointed with yourself and for being mad at God. See, American Western churches are selling you dreams that God never said. The church has to stop making generalized blanketed statements about people's individual calling. God doesn't despise what is small, but we as humans do. Do we see the contrast? God doesn't devalue or despise what is small. We do. If God gave it to you and it is small, I'll take that over taking anything that the devil can offer me that's big, right? If God gave it to you and it is small, I'll take that over anything big the devil can ever offer me. So you have to know your jurisdiction and know your limits, because there is power in knowing your limit and there is power in knowing when to stop, because Jesus made it clear. He was only sent to the lost sheep of Israel. The Gentiles would receive someone else to minister to them about the saving grace and the salvation that they get when they enter into kingdom life, right? When they enter the kingdom of God. The disciples had a jurisdiction. Jesus told them in Matthew chapter 28, verse 19, he says, go out into the world and make disciples. But each disciple had a specific realm and had a specific jurisdiction. I think Thomas, he was deployed to India. India was his jurisdiction. Paul was not necessarily an immediate disciple, but he had the Asia Minor jurisdiction, right? So each disciple and each person that has been called by God has an area and has a jurisdiction. James Was he called to the Jews? Was Peter called to the Jews, and then later on maybe called to help kind of facilitate with all those new believers? Right? Each disciple had a jurisdiction. Each apostle had a jurisdiction, which communicates that they had a limitation. And so when we understand that the limitation is not bad, but it's so that we can actually operate within our strength, the strength that God has given us to be effective for the sake of his kingdom, then we will understand that there's nothing wrong with having limitations. Jesus was called to the lost sheep of Israel. The disciples had certain jurisdictions. The apostles had certain jurisdictions, and they were not to go outside of that jurisdiction. Jesus' concern was for the lost sheep of Israel, and he would appoint others to go to the Gentile nations and to impact the other Gentiles, to impact the other nations, to even impact the pagan nations. Jesus had specific people for that, but his limitation and his jurisdiction, this is God in the flesh, was to one group of people for one period of time, right? This is understanding our limitations and our jurisdiction. Again, the American church is calling, oh Lord, expand my territory. The Lord may never expand your territory, and that's okay. He wants you to operate within the wheelhouse of your jurisdiction and the wheelhouse within your bounds, because that's where you're going to make the most and the immediate impact. Thank you so much for tuning in with me to this episode of Think Tank Tuesday. If this lesson was a help to you and a blessing to you, please like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Until next time, friends, peace.
May the Lord bless you, keep you, and make his face shine upon you. As we abide in his grace, presence, and peace, remember that you are an agent of change wherever your feet shall tread. Thanks for listening to this message and for the opportunity to teach and lead you. Until next time.